April 7, 1944, 4:17 hours. The Ridge, Kohima, Burma. Sergeant Thomas Sterling, a 24-year-old section commander of the machine gun platoon, 4th Battalion, the Queen's Own Royal West Kent Regiment, is fortifying a desperate defensive position on Garrison Hill. He lies just 400 yards from the District Commissioner's bungalow, the Eye of the Storm. He possesses 4 Vickers .303 medium machine guns. Each is a beast of engineering, weighing nearly 40 pounds, 18 kilograms, for the gun alone, and another 50 pounds for the Mark IV tripod, not counting the ammunition belts, the condenser cans, and the vital cooling water. In 6 hours, these 4 guns will face the fury of the Japanese 31st Division in one of the most ferocious night assaults of the entire Burma campaign. But what Sterling is about to do with these heavy weapons will defy every paragraph of the King's Regulations and the small arms training manuals that the British Army has sworn by since the Great War. He does not know it yet, but he is about to improvise a technique so devastating that Japanese battle reports will later describe the British defenders as demons capable of killing at 800 yards with machine guns as if they were using Lee Enfield precision rifles. To understand the impossibility of what is about to unfold, one must first understand the doctrine. The Vickers machine gun, the queen of the battlefield, was the workhorse of the British Empire. Designed to provide sustained, indirect fire, it spits out .303 British rimmed cartridges at a steady cadence of 450 to 500 rounds per minute. Its water jacket keeps the barrel from melting during hour-long barrages. According to the rigid doctrine of the British Army, the Vickers has a specific function: area denial and the creation of a beaten zone. You do not aim at individual men. You aim at a patch of ground where you expect the enemy to be. You clamp the elevation and traverse mechanisms to spray a cone of fire, covering an arc of ground like a hose. Individual marksmanship is irrelevant, volume and geometry are everything. To use a heavy, tripod-mounted Vickers as a sniper rifle, carefully picking off individual targets at ranges exceeding 500 yards, is considered a gross waste of His Majesty's ammunition and a tactical absurdity. The Vickers has basic iron sights, or a dial sight for indirect fire, designed for laying down barrages, not for surgical removal of threats. But Sergeant Sterling is not reading manuals tonight. He is reading the terrain of the Nogga Hills, and he is reading the enemy. At 22:30 hours on April 6, intelligence from the forward observation posts reports massive enemy movement 2 kilometers to the south. Recce patrols estimate thousands of Japanese soldiers from Lieutenant General Kutoku Soto's division are massing. Colonel Richards, commanding the garrison, orders all units to stand to. Sterling positions his 4 Vickers guns on the reverse slope, with fields of fire cutting across the approaches from the jungle tree line. Each gun is manned by a 3-man team: the number 1, firer, the number 2, belt feeder, and the number 3, ammunition bearer. Sterling has 12 men to hold 200 yards of the perimeter. At 2:30 hours, April 7, the assault begins. The Japanese 31st Division launches a coordinated, 3-wave attack against the West Kents. The first wave, 1,000 men. Their objective is to shatter the British lines with a banzai charge, a frontal assault relying on terrifying noise and sheer numerical weight. The Japanese scream their war cries, fixing bayonets and charging up the incline. Sterling's 4 Vickers guns open up simultaneously. The Vickers is a relentless machine. 4 guns firing in 6-second bursts deliver hundreds of rounds into the darkness. The Japanese charge headlong into a solid wall of .303 caliber lead. The first wave disintegrates, the survivors melting back into the blackness of the jungle. 178 enemy soldiers lie dead on the slope. But then comes the second wave. Another 1,000 men emerge at 3:15 hours. This time, they are smarter. They advance in small infiltration groups, using the jungle cover, darting from tree to tree. Sterling's guns open up again, but now the targets are not a solid mass. They are individual shadows flitting between the trees at 300, 400, 500 yards. In 30 minutes of hellish combat, disaster strikes. Japanese knee mortars rain down on the British position. 3 of Sterling's 4 guns are knocked out. His crews are killed or frantically evacuating the wounded. By 3:55 hours, Sterling has only one functional Vickers gun left. And he is completely alone. The 11 men of his section are either dead or carried to the aid post. One sergeant, alone with a heavy machine gun, against approximately 800 Japanese soldiers still pressing the attack. Military doctrine dictates that Sterling must disable the gun and withdraw. To hold a position without support, without flank protection, is suicide. But if he withdraws, the Japanese will breach the perimeter and overrun the garrison. Kohima will fall. The road to India will be open. Sterling makes a decision that defies all military logic. Instead of firing sweeping arcs of suppression, he begins to use the Vickers as a heavy sniper rifle. Here is how he does it. He locks the tripod legs into the earth for maximum rigidity. He loads a fresh 250-round canvas belt. He lies prone behind the spade grips. He looks through the aperture sights meant for rough estimation. But Sterling is a country boy from the Kentish Weald. He grew up poaching rabbits and shooting competitions. He understands ballistics. He understands the drift of the bullet. He understands how gravity drags a projectile down over half a mile. He applies these principles to a 40-pound machine gun. At 4 o'clock hours, as the Japanese organize their third wave, Sterling spots movement at 600 yards. A Japanese officer, identifiable by his sword and the way he marshals his troops, is rallying men near the tennis court for the final push. Sterling unlocks the elevation wheel. He adjusts for the drop at 600 yards. He does not hold the trigger, he taps the spade grips. Thump thump thump. A burst of just 3 rounds. The Japanese officer drops stone dead. The soldiers around him scatter in confusion. They cannot understand how an area suppression weapon just performed a precision kill at 600 yards. Machine guns don't do that. Snipers do that. But Sterling has just transmuted his Vickers into a precision instrument. For the next 30 minutes, Sterling plays a deadly game of whack-a-mole. He identifies high-value targets between 400 and 800 yards. Every time he sees an officer, a mortar team setting up, or a squad leader gesturing, he sends a microscopic burst of 3 to 5 rounds. The Japanese are terrified. Their battle diaries, recovered after the siege, describe British machine guns with demonic accuracy and impossible range. Some soldiers believe the British have deployed a secret weapon. It is no secret weapon. It is Sergeant Thomas Sterling, using a conventional weapon in a wildly unconventional way. At 4:30 hours, the Japanese third wave collapses. Leaderless and demoralized by the unseen precision fire, the survivors retreat into the jungle. Sterling has held the line alone for 45 minutes against 800 attackers. When the relief column from the 2nd Division finally breaks through and reaches his position at 5 o'clock hours, they find Sterling still behind the spade grips. The water in the cooling jacket is boiling, sending a plume of steam into the humid morning air. A mountain of brass casings surrounds him. Down the slope, over 100 Japanese bodies lie still, many at ranges exceeding 500 yards. Captain Charles Kelly, the company commander, arrives and stares at the carnage. He asks, "Sergeant, how in God's name did you hit them at that range with a Vickers?" Sterling, wiping cordite soot from his face, replies, "Sir, a .303 round from a rifle kills at 800 yards. A .303 round from a Vickers kills at 800 yards. The bullet doesn't know which gun it came out of." This response summarizes a ballistic truth that would quietly revolutionize infantry tactics after the Burma campaign. The legacy of the automatic sniper. The story does not end there. Following the disaster at Kohima, Japanese intelligence analyzed the failure. Major Tokeo Ito of the Imperial General HQ in Rangoon studied the survivor reports. Initially, he dismissed the claims of sniping machine guns as the hallucinations of shell-shocked troops. A Vickers cannot snipe at 800 yards. It is technically absurd. But the reports were consistent. Ito concluded that the British must have developed a new doctrine. He issued a directive, The enemy is employing heavy machine guns in a sniper role. Avoid exposure at any distance. Consider all British machine guns as precision threats. This crippled Japanese morale. Previously, they felt safe moving at 600 yards. Now, nowhere was safe. Ironically, Stirling hadn't invented a new technology, he had simply ignored the artificial limitations the manual placed on his weapon. Back in England, the School of Infantry at Warminster took note. In 1943, instructors interviewed veterans like Stirling. The conversation was revealing. The instructors, steeped in the trench warfare doctrine of 1914 to 1918, insisted that the cone of fire was the only way to use the gun. Stirling took them to the ranges on Salisbury Plain. He set up a Vickers. He identified a target at 700 yards. Tap tap tap. 3 rounds. 2 hits. The instructors were stunned. Why, one colonel asked, was this not taught before? Because nobody needed it before, sir, Stirling replied. In Flanders, you fired from a trench to keep heads down. You didn't need to hit a specific helmet. But in the jungle, the Jap attacks in waves, or he sneaks. If you kill the officer before he can wave his sword, the attack dies before it starts. The British Army doctrine had been forged in the mud of the Somme. The war in the Far East required something else. By late 1944, training pamphlets were updated to include engagement of opportunity targets using heavy machine guns. The change was dramatic. At the crossing of the Irrawaddy in 1945, British gunners used Vickers guns to snipe Japanese bunker slits at 600 yards. The philosophy shifted from suppress the area to eliminate the threat. Sergeant Stirling was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal, DCM, for his stand at Kohima. The citation noted he held his position against superior numbers. It failed to mention he did so by using a machine gun as a sniper rifle, as the technique was still officially irregular. But the men of the Royal West Kents knew him simply as the sniper gunner. After the war, Stirling returned to Kent. He rarely spoke of the war, but his lesson permeated the British Army. The weapon has no limitations, only the manual has limitations. This philosophy of adaptability became the hallmark of the British soldier, the Tommy, who was forced to fight with less equipment than his American cousins but made up for it with ingenuity. The Japanese officer who wrote in his diary, "The British turned defense into attack, and area weapons into precision instruments," captured the essence of the defeat. The Imperial Army was rigid, bound by the Bushido Code and strict orders. When the plan failed, they shattered. The British soldier, conversely, grumbled, made a cup of tea, and improvised a solution. Stirling's technique influenced the future. The design of the post-war L7 GPMG, general-purpose machine gun, the famous Gympie, incorporated optical sights and a bipod specifically designed for accurate, single-shot engagements, a direct lineage from the lessons learned in the jungles of Burma. And it all started with a sergeant on a nameless ridge in Kohima, who had 30 seconds to decide whether to follow the rulebook and die, or throw the book away and fight. He chose to fight. What do you think of this unauthorized technique that shifted military thinking? Did you know the story of how the British turned the heavy Vickers into a sniper's tool? Subscribe for more verified accounts of battlefield innovation that the history